I am Malika Ramsey. Welcome to our election update. Of course, as you know, Guyana would have held its regional and general elections on Monday, the 11th of May, 2015. It is now Wednesday, the 13th of May, 2015, and Guyana is still waiting on the results of the regional and general elections from the Guyana Elections Commission. We know that some of you are very tense. You're anxiously awaiting those results. Of course, with me this evening is leader of the People's National Congress Reform, presidential candidate for Partnership for National Unity, Alliance for Change, and I know most of the population who would have voted solidly for a Partnership for National Unity, Alliance for Change is already calling him the president, of course, but we still await the official results from the Guyana Elections Commission. While we're waiting on those results, the Brigadier is here with me this evening to give you an update on what's happening. Brigadier, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us this evening.
It's always a pleasure, Malika.
All right. Great, sir. As I said in the beginning, the public is tense, they're anxious, and I know yourself and the prime ministerial candidate will have continued to call for peace and calm as we wait on GECOM for these results. While all of that is happening, you also earlier this evening met with the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission, Mr. Steve Surjbali. First of all, what was your reason for meeting with Mr. Surjbali?
Well, in fact, the team from a Partnership for National Unity and the Alliance for Change met with the entire Guyana Election Commission, including the Chief Elections Officer. We were concerned about the slow release of information to the public. We were concerned about the fact that there's a slowdown in business in Georgetown and other centers, Linden and other places. We were concerned that there was uncertainty among the people, and there was a great potential for unrest spilling over into violent confrontations. I think it's an undesirable situation, it's an unhealthy situation, and the sooner we bring an end to this uncertainty, the better. We called on the Election Commission to make an early declaration, let the people know what the results were of as represented by the statements of poll. Let's have an early declaration, let's have an early swearing in of the president, and let's get on with our business. When we look at the rest of the Western Hemisphere, Jamaica, Britain, other countries, do not have to wait 2-3 days for election results. We've had this problem before, and we're fed up having to wait 2-3 days to count the votes of 400,000 or 500,000 people. It is not normal, and we feel that the delay is contrived, and that is what is hurtful. The whole country is suffering because of the imposed delay caused by a few people in announcing the results and making a proper declaration.
You said that you believe that the delay is somewhat contrived. Because the population now wants to know, is GECOM, in terms of revamping, restructuring, and trying to better the operations of GECOM, is that going to be on your priority list when you finally take office, sir?
It was on our priority list before we go into office, because in our interactions and engagements with GECOM since last year, we called for an early declaration of results, and we were promised that. In Jamaica, for example, results are declared by midnight of the same night, And we have a system in Guyana which could give us early results, because after the polls close, the ballots are counted, and this means that by 9 or 10 o'clock, the people know, because each PO, each presiding officer, must publish the statements of poll for that individual polling station. So all of Guyana knows. It means Starbuck News, other media had been publishing the reports on the statements of poll. So I don't see why it must take 2 days. It mustn't even take 1 day. It's a matter of hours. Countries with larger populations than Guyana can announce their polls in shorter time than Guyana. So it is very, very distressing. And we expect the GECOM to put the declaration of the results before the people of this country so they can get back to work. Right now, Guyana is being paralyzed by the sloth of the announcements. We're being paralyzed.
In the last 24 hours, we've had actually 2 major announcements, and of course I'm going to deal with the announcements coming from the PPPC. First off, and I'd like to say maliciously, they maliciously announced that they were ahead, they would have won the elections, And secondly, today, this morning, most of us woke up to the news that the PPPC is now calling for a recount. Your thought on both of those announcements, the fact that they would have said that they were ahead, which is obviously not true, coming from some of the figures we saw from GECOM, and the second thing, that they called for a recount. Your thoughts on both?
The PPP is behind this delay. The PPP is deliberately inventing reasons, and sometimes it has no reasons for calling for the recount. They started off by asking for, I think, 3 what they call electoral districts to be recounted, or some stations within 3 districts. Now they have stations within all 10 electoral districts. PPP is making a crisis. They're inventing a crisis. They're contriving a crisis by imposing delays on the Guyanese people. And this is, the people don't deserve this. The PPP was fully aware of the results of the elections, I'm sure, by late on Monday night and early hours of Tuesday morning. And then they came up with this series of lies about they being ahead. This is the first time since 1992 the PPP has been calling for these massive recounts. If they're so confident that they won, why have a recount?
What sort of effect would the call for a recount have on the final declaration, where we hear GECOM coming out and say, well, this particular coalition has won the election and whoever the president is? What effect would this recount have on that?
I cannot see that the recount should have any significant effect, because the votes at any single polling station should not exceed 300 or 400. Those votes were carefully counted and entered into what is called a statement of poll. These had to be signed and sent to the returning officers. So each PO, each presiding officer at a polling station should have completed that task in hours after the poll closed. And how long does it take to count 400 votes? So by midnight, I'm confident that most of the polling stations knew the statements of poll were signed off, and people ought to have been ready to go home, look at their television, and see the results. I cannot see that the recount would have any effect other than delaying the declaration. And that is why I am convinced that the entire drama that is being played out here is an invention of the PPP to delay democracy, to delay notifying the Guyanese people of the outcome, the true outcome of the elections of 11th of May. And it probably gives them time to do some mischief, or perhaps to clean up the mischief.
Sir, I was coming to that now. I spoke to a few members of the population today, and they're concerned that while GECOM will allow this recount that the PPP has called for, that during the recount mischief could be afoot. Are you concerned about that?
Well, I'm concerned about 2 things. One is that the PPP requests did not actually state any grounds for the recount. They did not say why a recount was necessary. And 2, the evidence suggests that the delay is only favoring them. And during this period, they realize that people are becoming restless, and they probably hope that there would be some incident or some event which would encourage them to maybe take some aggressive action or response, which is going to be hurtful or harmful to the population, and use that to justify a further prolongation of this delay. It's all malice, as far as I could see. The PPP has no good reason to behave in this way. What they need to do is cut down on these calls for recounts, allow GECOM to get on with its work, have an early declaration, so by Thursday or Friday, we can have a new government functioning, and this country moves forward. Right now, everything is at a standstill.
There is a rumor that the PPPC may file some sort of injunction to stop GECOM from declaring who the real winners are. Would you like to comment on that?
My information is that such an injunction, that the High Court was approached for such an injunction, but my information is that it hasn't been granted. Again, it's frivolous. Again, it's one of the series of measures the PPP has been using to prevent the democratic outcome of the 11th of May elections. So the count is won, and the High Court The approach to the High Court is another. And there have been other incidents. Even on election day, there were attempts by identifiable persons associated with the PPP to cause confusion.
Is Brigadier David Granger confident that a Partnership for National Unity Alliance for Change has won these elections?
What I said 24 hours ago and what I repeat now is that all of the statements of poll that we have seen, all of the indicators point to APNU AFC having a commanding lead. And I would say by this time, that lead has created such a gap between APNU and AFC on the one hand and the PPPC on the other hand, that it is not possible for the PPP to close that gap.
All right, sir. Earlier, you talked about, at the beginning of this broadcast, you talked about the fact, and this really is a fact, and of course the viewers would agree, the fact that our population, especially in Georgetown, they're tense right now. Businesses are not operating as they usually operate. What would you like to say at this time, specifically to business persons who are fearful that there may be some sort of, for want of a better word, that there may be some sort of unrest?
Well, I would say two things. If any of them are friends of the PPP, tell the PPP to call off this silly game. And let's get on with our lives. You know, tell the PPP to stop bringing up these silly calls for recounts and the delays that they're imposing, because business is hurting. The whole country is hurting. The second thing I would like to say, be calm. Do not get involved in any disorder. APNU and AFC are committed to a peaceful outcome, and we are not going to promote or allow any sort of lawlessness to take place. We are very patient. We had cause in October, November, December last year to picket the PPP calling for local government election. There was not a single arrest, not a single incident. And as far as APNU and AFC are concerned, we are not going to get involved in any violence. And I call on all citizens, not only business persons, all citizens, not to get involved in any disturbance of the peace. At the end of the day, we are going to show that we are a civilized people. We are going to show that democracy has triumphed on the 11th of May. We're going to show that this country can move forward. The PPP has been the hindrance, and the PPP up to now is showing its true colors in preventing a democratic decision of the Guyanese people from being implemented.
Sir, before we have to begin to wrap up, let me ask you this. Could it be that the PPP is also buying time to maybe secure their regional seats and their parliamentary positions? Is that possible also?
I do not know what skullduggery the PPP is up to.
Mm-hmm.
What I do know is that this delay is artificially contrived by the PPP. I've heard stories that they are trying to clean up the offices. Maybe, on the other hand, they're trying to seek some adjustment to the low scores that they had in regions which were traditionally won by the PPP, won by them. So I don't know the reason. What I know, it is hurting this country and must be brought to an end as quickly as possible.
What effect would the fact that, because we've heard these rumors all day, people are moving boxes and files from ministries and shredding files. How can that affect a new government?
That is bound to affect the new government. When we get into office, you know, the cupboard is likely to be bare. We can't tell exactly what is taking place now. But, you know, we know that the public servants are loyal, they are professionals, and we will engage them when we go in to find out what damage has been done. But if the PPP has been found, any members, any individuals have been found to have damaged or destroyed or stolen government property, they will have to answer to the law.
Okay, and finally, sir, before we wrap, what would you like to say to the Guyana Elections Commission at this time in terms of getting the results to the people?
I would like to say that within a matter of minutes or hours, the Guyana Election Commission must announce all of the results it has, in all of the statements of poll. As soon after that as possible, they should make a declaration. And as soon after that declaration is possible, they should swear in the new president of Guyana.
Any further action that you can possibly take if they don't do that? And I'm just going to throw a day out here, if they don't do that by Friday.
I'm not setting a deadline, but
Okay.
I would like to ask the Guyanese population to remain calm, do not get involved in any lawlessness. Look forward to a new democratic day on the APNU and AFC.
Thank you very much, sir. Leader of the People's National Congress Reform, and of course, APNU AFC presidential candidate and soon to be president, Brigadier the Honorable David Granger. I am Malika Ramsey, Guyana. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'd like to echo the sentiments of the Brigadier. Please, at this time, stay calm. And I urged you last week, do not be provoked. Do not allow yourselves to be provoked. And of course, a reminder, stay calm. Do have a good evening.